So Todd's job.
Mm.
Okay, come.
Now it says we're live.
It does say we are live. All right, we're going to put that video up one more time. Welcome to Comic Book Level Up. I am your host, Travis Gibb. Normally, I have Todd here, but Todd is not there today. Actually, Todd would be here. He normally has the right seat, but he is not here today. He is not feeling well, so I am going to do this one solo, which is very, very interesting because I have a good friend of mine who I've known since the beginning of his career. We kind of started out about the same time. So I'm really excited to dig deep into what he's all about and all the stuff. I'm going to try to get some of the backgrounds and all the clips working. It's going to be a shit show, and I'm super excited for it. I'm excited about this because I've got a bunch of buttons here. I don't know what stuff. So normally, Todd and I would play off each other and say, let's level up. So I'm going to do that all by myself. Let's level up. That's right. Comic Book Level Up is on tonight. That was our whole intro. Again, way better with Todd. Not as great by myself. But tonight, I have Joel Rodriguez. I'm going to have to try to figure out all the backgrounds and all the crazy stuff that we've got to do. But I've got our guest right here tonight. Him and I are going to talk about his career. We're going to do all that stuff. Let's see if I can get him to work. Nope. Hold on. You're working, but hold on. You're here, but there's another button I'm sure I have to hit to make it cool. So I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that, Todd. Where are you, Todd? Wait.
Oh.
No. Can I just make me smaller? No.
Todd didn't teach you all the buttons.
He didn't teach me all the buttons. There's a cool thing that's normally in the background. I've got it loaded up, but I don't know how to make it show. So, yeah, we'll figure it out. I don't know. It's fine. Everything's fine. But
it's fine by me.
Let me show you something really cool, Joel. You've got this awesome intro. You ready?
Yeah. That was pretty awesome. That was awesome. I'm glad you found the button for that.
Right. Well, I have all the buttons for the record. The buttons are not the problem. The how to execute the buttons and the display are the problem. See, I'm a StreamYard guy. I think you're a StreamYard guy as well. So,
yes.
Yeah. So this is all fancy dancy. It's too fancy for me, and to be honest, Joel, it's too fancy.
I mean, it looks nice and it presents well, so that's good.
Yeah,
when you can figure out the buttons, so we'll make it work. We've been making it work for years.
Well, there's a whole bunch of things. Oh, don't click that button, Joel.
Oh.
There's a thing called default graphics. If you click on it, like the whole thing goes crazy. Don't do it. So I always have a beer when I do these interviews because I enjoy beer. You're aware of me, but I picked one out specifically for you. I got this at Baltimore for the Ringos. You and I have a very similar experience at Ringos. We are both Ringo nominees.
Yep. Ringo, not winners.
Not winners, right. I got Be More Active because you're an active guy. You try to take care of yourself. I'm not sure why beer is trying to target the active lifestyle, but I like it. It says, a refreshing pale ale for those living in an active lifestyle.
I mean, I feel like they may have a hard time in that market, but good on them for trying. I mean,
Well,
they're
there is
getting
a lot of like running clubs, right, where the end result of said running club gets you a beer.
every obstacle course race that I do get a free beer at the end. So,
Right.
so
So there is something there, unless they're targeted to like, what the 55 plus community, the active, because they also use the same kind of verbiage for them.
I mean, I guess we need a more clear definition of active. What are they looking for active?
Right. And how many? Wow, there's a huge government warning. Baltimore, Maryland's a little out of control with their warnings, and it's only 4%. So I'm not sure why they're so worried about what's happening here.
I kind of want to see the warnings that they have on whiskey, which is what I normally drink.
Right.
Like if 4% will get you that, what'll really get you in trouble up there?
So tonight it's going to be all about you. You're the first time we've had a letterer, which you're not even just a letterer anymore. You're a publisher, and you're also a writer. You've done all things, so to qualify this show, you fit all the criteria. So what we do is you have to have something finished. Your Kickstarter right now, make sure that you're finished. You have a book that is being finished. And even if that didn't count, we have Stake and we have Jessamy on your lettering side to make sure you're finished. So that's a criteria. You fit that criteria. You've had to been work for another company that wasn't you. You've done that several times. We're going to talk about that tonight. So you fit the two criteria that we have. So congratulations, you can level up with us tonight, and you've done a bunch of leveling up. So when I met you, I think it was like 2017, 2018, right?
Yeah, it was late 2018. Okay. That's when I first started getting into going around to the conventions and trying to figure out how to do this. So I started writing Dust County in late 2018 and actually officially got started in January of 2019. So we would have met late 2018.
Okay. All right. And do you remember, because I don't remember 100% if it was an email, because Rob was sending me a lot of emails at that time, Rob Anderson.
Yep.
Or was it at a con? Do you remember?
So I remember the first two times we met, and I can't remember which order they were in. Okay. I think the first time Chrissy and I, Chrissy, my wife, guess that's my wife and the COO of Metal Ninja Studios.
Yeah, hold on. Let me give her a little extra prop. A excellent proofreader. She finds mistakes that most people won't find. She is very, very good at it.
That is why she does all of the QA proofing for Metal Ninja Studios to make sure that we don't mess up. Yeah, she's very good at it. So anyway, we were walking around this small, must have been a hotel show or just one of those levels of shows, really small. And I was trying to ask questions about how to get into comics. And I saw two guys sitting at a booth, sharing a table. And one of them I recognized because I had seen before and talked to before. That was Rob. And then there was this other guy next to him selling this book with a lot of vulgarity in it and a lot of violence.
Right.
That sounded awesome. So that was, I think, the first time that we actually interacted and talked. And then after that was Acme. And we were doing a show at Acme. It was the debut of the Dust County Chronicles. I tell this story on all of the podcasts where I brought 50 copies and I sold out in 2 days. And you were at that show. And while we were at that show, Rob was apparently talking about me on social media, telling people they need to come check out my book. And then I remember you walked over and you said, well, apparently I need to know you because my friend's talking about you and not me. And then, that's how we started talking.
Yeah, and that Acme show was not the big one that you put on later on, right? That was nope. A different one.
Yep, that was a different one. That was my first time ever doing a show because I had just printed this ash can. I was trying to figure out what to do with it, and I saw that Acme was doing this this small creator show. So I called them and asked how much it costs to get a table, what it takes to get in. Of course, I'm new. I know nothing about this. And they said, "Yeah, if you got a book, come on down." So I did, and it was like the next day I was setting up at this show.
You
So,
know what's super interesting about that story? Larry, because I've never met the owners of Acme. I've always been invited. I've never really met them. I think I probably shook their hand or whatever, but like email correspondence or all that. Just
yeah.
invited me out for Granite State Punk for the release. He was like, "Hey, do you have a store? We sold really well of it. We have 50 copies, and I'm going to the store on October 11th." Isn't that wild? How because we haven't done anything in Acme
Yeah.
since that big show. Um,
No, no.
so yeah,
Wow.
just happened today, which is so super kismet. I think is the word that they say, kismet.
Yeah, I mean, it all
That's
goes
really
full
wild.
circle.
I
That's
saw your
awesome.
book, and I invited you to my first signing as well. For
She's working.
yeah, there's a little lag. Try again.
Lag.
Oh, can you see?
Okay, you there? I can see you. Can you see me? Hello? Can you hear me? Testing, testing. Okay, try again. No. Hey, there you are.
There you go. Wow, that took way longer than planned. I apologize. I had to go through like every setting and then log into another browser and blah blah blah.
Wow, wow.
But
Uh, y-
so
See, you got lucky. I was contemplating whether or not to go on this huge monologue. I just couldn't figure out a topic.
right, right, yeah, that's more me. I do more of the monologuing than you. That's kind of my thing. But yeah, I don't know what happened there. But we are back. Uh, Todd will have to edit that out. That Todd can do that, I think. Yeah, Todd can do that. So I invited you out to a small little event. For some reason, I didn't want to pick a comic store to be my first event. We've got it. Yeah, that's how leveling up being acted out as a dramatic skit. Thank you, David. Um, so I invited you because I didn't want to pick a comic store because at the time I felt like that was offensive if you picked one. But I invited you out because you just had finished. I think at the first con you just had like half the issue or a couple of pages, right? Right, like
Yeah, it was
two of
half
the
the
four.
first issue.
Right.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
And then mine, you had all four, but it was a black and white.
Yes, yeah. I forgot I did that, but yep.
Yeah, yeah. So it was all four, but it was black and white still. And I think that was intentional. I think you had the color ones, but you really wanted the Kickstarter because you were launching the Kickstarter like either that day or very soon after.
Yeah, I wanted the Kickstarter to really be the first time you got the full issue. And that was actually the birth of the Midnight editions, which we actually have available on the Kickstarter now. Where I'm a huge fan of classic horror, so I wanted to do that black and white version to kind of homage like George Romero's stuff and classic black and white horror. So yeah, that was the origin of that. And honestly, I forgot I had it for that show, but thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, yeah. I remember it specifically. I remember you had it. I remember it was kind of a big deal because it was the first time you printed. You had to print it really fast.
Yep.
And then from there, you kind of really took off really, really fast as a letterer, trying to bounce the writing and the lettering together, right? Because you were trying to do Dust County Chronicles 2, but people started to figure out that you're a letterer, so you got grabbed on very early from Russell to do his Cthulhu, and you did like 5 stories in the first one or something like that, right?
3.
Was that the first one or the second one? It may have been the second one that you jumped on.
It was the second one that I jumped on and worked with Russell, and I think I did 3 different stories in there. Yeah. One of which was my story, and then they had 2 situations where the letterer of other stories dropped out, and he asked me if I could help out, and of course I did. And one of them was for uh, LK and Gino,
Right.
Leanne, and I still work for her today. And then one was for Ray Anthony Height. That was a fun one. Both of those were really fun stories to work on. And then that Cthulhu story was among the first anthology piece that I actually had published by anyone else. So that was a cool experience too.
Yeah, yeah, and then I got you on the next on the first Cthulhu, but then you started working with David for Steak, which is
Yep.
funny. It's so crazy how connected you and David were, but I met David separately from you, even though we had done things together. That I always find that interesting about our origins. We both have separate times that we met David and do separate. Our relationships are not intertwined. Like most people are like, you and David are very intertwined. David and I are very intertwined on a different level, but we didn't meet each other as like a group. We met everybody solo.
Yeah, yeah. Funny thing, I actually met David at Acme too.
Oh, nice, nice, nice.
Yep. It might have even been that same show or one I did after that, but David was sitting right next to us, and the entire show we didn't talk to David. Um, but or I didn't talk to David, I should say. But then at the end, throughout the entire show, there were these two kids running around and being crazy and hectic and getting into stuff, and not the type of behavior you'd like at a comic book show. So at the end of the show, those same kids dropped a Coke on my table and got soda on all my comics, and I was not thrilled about it. And then David and I finally started talking about how ridiculous these kids are, and we didn't stop talking after that.
Right, and that's why we didn't do Acme shows for a while. For a minute. And, that and amongst there was another thing as well. But yeah, so
Yeah,
that was an event. I think you, but didn't you put on that event?
not that one.
Okay, so
Um,
this is the one. So there was still one more after that that you and David did, because I remember the soda one being at the last event that we did.
honestly, it's all kind of a blur now. I can't
Okay.
remember. I think I did 3. The last time I went to Acme was the time that I was one of the organizers of the event. That was a whole different endeavor.
But
Uh,
that was cool. We had a cool poster. You did stuff.
yep.
A lot of people like a lot of people pride me like because I do Indietober and I do all these other things, but you were also early on when you didn't have a full workload for publishing, which we're going to get into in a minute, was we're doing a lot of the same things. You set up a thing at God of Monsters. I remember doing a signing there. That's your local
Hmm.
comic store. And even to this day, I'm actually going to message him very soon to do another signing out there because I haven't done one in a couple of years. And I was supposed to do one for Granite State Punk, and I just slipped my mind. But you were setting up all these events just like I was. So we were setting up all these little big events, all these small little events to try to make ourselves known and sell books, which I thought was really cool. And then we tabled at both of our first MegaCon, which was wild.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that MegaCon, that was a fun event. Was that the one where David brought the couch?
Maybe it was either that or the year after. I don't remember if he had the idea for one and then brought it the next year, or that was the same.
Got you. Yep, I remember that one was when Rob was picking on both of us for only having one book, but I think we both outsold him.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, that was the first MegaCon that I did, and that was when it really got surreal being on that side of the table. And before then, I didn't even know that splitting a table was a thing.
Right.
So when you and I decided to split that table and actually attend the show and sell, that was a real crazy experience just going through that entire thing the first time. And I think you're right where I've always wanted to give back to the community and do something to help grow the community, but unlike you, I am horrible with social media.
Sure.
I don't do well on it. I don't pay attention to it. I'm just not good at all. And for the longest time, I didn't do anything with it. Like, you allude to how I got busy doing all of these projects, and I've always been a very nose to the grindstone type of person. Like, if I set my mind on something, I'm going
Right.
to sit down and focus on it until it gets done. Well, when that one thing leads to another thing, leads to another thing, leads to another thing, and I essentially have 5 years worth of word of mouth growth, it doesn't leave much room for social media marketing or development or anything like that. So I didn't really start paying attention to anything social media related until probably this last year, and that's when I brought on Blake, my social media or my marketing manager, because when the studio expanded, I realized that okay, I need to actually focus on marketing now because now it's not just me that's relying on me.
Yeah, but
But
let's back you up a little bit because we at
okay,
the show we kind of go through a tour of your whole life. So I want to go
yep,
where I think your next stop was. So it's
okay,
one two spots. All right, I need to make a graphic real quick. Hold on, it doesn't take that long. You're going to be able to tell the difference between the one that I made and the one that Joel that the boy made. All right, so you started doing this, which led to this, correct?
yes, Yep, yep.
Let's start at Stake. So we've already established that you met David. David signed you on to letter his book. When we met David, he had a different stake altogether. Did you letter that first one?
He
The,
he did the Ashcan himself,
okay, the Ashcan. So
and
we
and brought me on to do the Kickstarter version. So when we met him, he was selling the Ashcan with the
okay.
Derek Chew cover, and then he brought me on to do the Kickstarter version. So I was there throughout the Kickstarter. I lettered Luis's art, and then I lettered the book again
Mhm.
when Francesco was brought on board.
So now that was your first book, right? That's your first finished book.
No, my first finished series was actually Vlad Dracul, which I also did for Scout. I did that one for Andrea Moody. He was the artist for it. And that one, I think it was around 150 pages. They released 3 issues. All 3 of them were oversized, and then they did the trade. And that was my first time actually taking a book from the beginning, literally through the end. Because by the time I got that book, started it, finished the lettering, um, and um, eventually onto the production, I had already started working for Scout as a production designer. So that's how the book ended up coming to me, because I was working with David. David had gotten into Scout as a production designer. He recommended me, so I got brought on. And then he would eventually move on to be the um, co-publisher with Charlie Stickney, and I would eventually move up to head of design. But in the beginning, while I was working as a production designer, this opportunity for Vlad Dracul came up, and they offered it to me. I accepted, and that was the first time I was able to take a book from lettering all the way through production, and then to do the design work on the trade paperback and release it to the direct market. So that was really my first full production project.
Okay. All right. Which is, by the way, is a great book. It's a fantastic book, and there's a lot of very unique designs. And then was Stake your second, or Stake was like 3 or 4 down because Scout was producing things so fast?
I think Stake was my second full project beginning to end, in that same vein. But at the same time, I was doing multiple lettering projects, multiple production projects. But I think those 2 were really the foundation for where my career ended up going with full service.
Right.
Those 2 kind of laid the groundwork for it.
Right. And not only did you do those, you even did the imprint, which I know you do a lot of Smelky stuff for
Hmm.
CEX, and all the Electric Black and Black Caravan stuff, which is my favorite part of Scout when it was part of Scout. Those were always my favorite books. That's when I signed Granite State Punk. I signed it for that,
Yep.
So you did all that. And for those who don't know, can you explain what production at Scout, something like Scout, what that entails?
Yeah, so basically, when a creator brings a book to a publisher, especially a creator-owned publisher like Scout, you provide the lettered pages and the covers. And after that, Scout will take it, and they do some work in terms of getting covers and planning in that regard, but mostly you bring the A cover and the interior art. Production design is then taking that and turning it into a book. So it's putting the trade dress, which is the publisher and the series branding. Yes, all of that. Put that on the front cover, designing the interior front cover, any back matter or ads that need to go into the back of the book. And back matter, for those who don't know, is any content that goes in the back of the book on top of the story. And then designing the back cover and basically giving it that full comic book appearance, and then preparing those files for print.
Yeah, and it's wild. And you did so many books. Yeah, I remember when I first started out. I remember having this conversation with your dad, where we both gave up because we were trying to support and like we're gonna buy everything that Joel does, and we're just like, no, we're done. We're only going to do it if he's the writer or like he has it tattooed on his arm. So we got Snake because it's tattooed on your arm, and we like David
Yes.
uh,
Yep.
a little bit,
Eh.
and yeah, you've got the stuff that you're writing, which is great.
It got to the point where even I gave up because there was a point where I was telling Scout I need all of the comps for everything that I do, but there was a good year-long point where everything that Scout put out, I worked on.
Right.
So they would have essentially had to have sent me their entire catalog for an entire year, which is a lot of books that I do not have the space for in my 2-bedroom condo. So that didn't last long, and I even gave up on trying to collect everything that I'd worked on.
Sure. Well, and even if you did, like, not all of them are your vibe. You know what you like and what you do like doesn't mean that it's not a
Yeah.
good book. It's just not your target. You're not the target for that particular book. So you'll have a bunch of stuff that you wouldn't like. Do you have a list somewhere though of everything you've ever worked on?
Unfortunately, not.
Good.
I really should. It's probably one of my biggest regrets, and I want to go through and try and figure it all out. Because, in case you haven't noticed from this conversation, my memory for those early years it's not fantastic. Uh, but yeah, I keep trying to put together a list, and even for the ongoing stuff, I try and put together a list of everything that me and now the team have worked on.
Right.
But there's just so much of it, and I don't say that to gloat. I say I spend so much time working on it that by the time I remember, oh crap, I'm supposed to be tracking this, 3 or 4 more books have gone out and I forgot what they were. And another problem that I run across is in doing work, especially for indie creators and even publishers to a larger degree, you submit your files and no one tells you when the book comes out.
Right.
We've kind of found a way to work with that in the marketing side of Metal Ninja Studios now that we're expanding, because we're working a lot more on the marketing side with our clients. So we have a bit more of an insight as to their release schedules. But there's a good 4 or 5 years where I would just submit books, and then 6 or so months later, I would find, oh, that book was released at some point, but I don't really know when.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. And then you had now the next year timeline. You again, things move so fast for you. So I'm going to move around a little bit. So I'm not going to tell
Yeah.
exactly truths. Um, but so you had a wonderful child. You have a
Yes.
beautiful child. I was at a no, I didn't go to the baby shower. I sent a gift, but I have seen the baby at the young, early stages of baby development and several years through. But at that time, you kind of stepped back, took a little bit less work from Scout, and you were getting a lot of private work and doing a lot of stuff. And over time, you left Scout to just go independent.
Yep.
Correct. So you went independent, and you did that for quite a bit of time before these guys came around.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So I left Scout after about a year of working there. And during my time at Scout was actually when I started doing comics full time. I tell the story about how when I first started writing the Dust County Chronicles, I put a sticky note up that said 10 years until full-time writer. Apparently, when I made the switch over to lettering, that sticky note went out the window because I started working for Scout when they needed to bring me on as head of design. I said, that's great. I would love to, but I can't do this and my day job. So I ended up moving to comics full time. And then while I was working at Scout, their needs and their demands for me were getting to be so great that I was starting to neglect my freelance clients.
Right.
And my freelance clients are the ones that got me to where I am. So I didn't want to just say, all right, screw you guys, I'm out, I'm working for the publisher. So I had to figure out what I was going to do. And like you said, I ended up leaving Scout to focus on those freelance clients. It just made more sense to me, stick to my roots and keep going with what I was planning and the direction my career was going. But then around that same time, one of those freelance clients was Merc Magazine, which was an up and coming first time Kickstarter publishing company that was trying to do like a magazine parody comic book and build it
Yeah.
into this universe. And their first book was Miss Meow #1, and they brought me in to letter it. So yes, it took a while for Merc to become the Merc that it is today, but they were one of those freelance clients that I left Scout to focus on. And then it just, as they grew and as they developed, then again, their needs for me and the services that I provided and my studio provided continued to grow. So if I keep going, I'm going to end up jumping ahead. So I will pass it back to you again.
You're good. You're good. Well, one of the things I remember, because I pay attention to Merc, it's not my type of books, but I've been very clear about that. But Frank Ouzin is such a amazing artist. I've loved him since the beginning, and he started doing those early books,
Death Rage.
Death Rage,
Yep.
Death Rage, doing those covers, and I was like, damn, all right, I need that. And then one day, so I pay attention to every launch. I pay attention to pretty much every launch on Kickstarter. And then one day, I saw a writing credit from Mr. Joel Rodriguez on a book that had the coolest looking mummy. And Merc, if you watch this, I don't want to write anything but that mummy. I will do whatever that mummy needs to do, whatever kind of story. That character design is just amazing, right? It's like seeing Spawn for the first time, right? You're like, oh my God, this character design is awesome. I don't care what the character is about. Like the design is so cool. Like I'm all in.
I know
hopefully it's cool.
I know the people that designed that character. I'll pass it along.
Please do. I will do anything to write a little bit of that character because that design is so good. I know David was working there, and I was like, David, um, I want to write that character. I don't know anything about her, but she is the coolest looking character I've ever seen. Because she's got that perfect, in my opinion. I know this is not what we're talking about. She's got that perfect like mix of sexy and like sinister, like for because she's a bad guy and like she's got that perfect blend of like I am not too far in any direction. I am just right, and depending on what you like, you're gonna see that part of it.
Yeah.
She's amazing. Anyways, what's her name? Do you know?
I don't.
Okay.
I can't
She's
remember.
only in like five pages, I think.
Yeah,
of the story.
five pages, and that was the Halloween special for last year, I believe. Yep.
So let them know I'm all in. Whatever, I will give discounted rate, whatever it is. I want to write that character. That character's cool as shit. You're doing a lot of Merc stuff, and Merc was crazy doing a lot of stuff early on. So they were doing Kickstarters and they were doing direct publishing.
Yep.
They had imprints early on. They were hitting it hard. I mean, comics. No one knows how to sell comics better than Comics Elite. Say what you will, like watch Comic Elite and like see them. Like I remember one time I went to. I remember you were very upset with it. Actually, I visited you guys in Miami. Do you remember this? You did one show in Miami.
I remember the Miami show. I don't remember you visiting.
I did visit, and you weren't doing well because it's an anime show.
Yes.
You're not supposed to do well.
This I remember.
And Comics Elite were talking to you, and I introduced myself, and they bought my comics. And I was staying with Kevin Joseph, so I didn't pay for rent. So all I did was pay there, and I made close to $1,000 because Comics Elite sells comics so well because they sold all of my stuff. Again, this is because it's an anime show. There was like 6 comics people to buy stuff from. They're used to buying comics on the floor and flipping them.
Yep.
So
I remember that story now.
So me visiting, they were just like, all right, we'll take it all. And you're like, mother effer. And I don't know if I beat you, but at the time, because I left on Sunday, I think you had a full another day. You're like, you have made more than me. And you haven't paid for anything.
Yep.
Kevin Joseph got me in. I think you gave me a badge, and Kevin Joseph gave me a badge. I think I borrowed one from you, from my wife, and I borrowed one from me.
Yeah. So I can't be too mad because that show, although I made like no money on that show,
right.
There was one guy who I was standing next to the entire time selling anime prints. And my pitch back then was super
Sure.
robotic. It was like repetitive and to the point where people would mess with me because if you interrupted me halfway through the pitch, I couldn't pick up at that point. I had to restart and people would mess with me for that. But anyway, this person standing next to me got so used to hearing the pitch that at the end of that show came over, bought everything, and has been a super backer ever since.
You can't go bad. And that's where we're currently at. We're going to get to this a little bit, but Nightfall is where we're at currently. We got one through three. It's all available on Kickstarter. We'll have the links in the bottom, but that's where we're at. And this is it, man. Like this is the end of Dust Crowning. You're finished it off. You got one little thing that we haven't really announced yet as well, but then you're on to your first trade. Like
Yep.
you created it, which is no different than me because I was super behind on making this. I know that your wife got dog days, and I apologize for the grammar in that. That is not my fault. But this one's good. By the way, yours came back. We got to figure that off air.
What?
This is yours. It said return to sender, no such number available. I don't know what I wrote wrong. So, and I don't want to say her address on the internet.
Yeah,
so
yeah. We'll talk about it. We'll figure it out.
So you were doing stuff. So you went crazy, did this Metal Ninja Studio, kind of a rebranding, a retooling, and now you're kind of where you're at now. We'll go back to Merc in a minute because that's the newest announcement. But you became this thing where you're not doing everything. And you and I just had this conversation recently. Where it's like, all right, so what do you letter? You're like, I don't really letter. No, like what do you lettering? I don't really letter. And then I get this in the mail showing that you're lying. Which, by the way,
in my defense, I lettered that years ago.
To be fair, this is one of your best lettering jobs. It's really, really good. This is a really good book.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do.
So, all right. Anyway, sorry.
I remember you tearing apart some of my old lettering, so I appreciate the compliment.
But yeah, so you start a studio and you hired like people. You've hired tons of people. Like, what does Metal Ninja Studio now? You've now become what I hate to do because remember you used to mock me because I was like I don't want to be a publisher. And I publish a lot of fucking shit for a company that doesn't want to be a publisher. But in my opinion, a publisher should be what you are right now, a full service studio that also publishes book. Like in my opinion, what it should be able to do. So tell me what Metal Ninja Studios does.
So Metal Ninja Studios is a full service comic production studio that specializes in taking comics or taking stories from concept all the way through to comic. We have a staff of writers, editors, letterers, production designers, graphic designers, basically the whole gamut except for art. And all of that comes down to our basic founding principles, which are quality over quantity, 1% better daily, and service over sales. In particular, that third one, because art is very subjective as it ties to the story. So if we had staff artists, then we would basically be forced to try and make your story fit within the capabilities of those artists, because artists spend their entire lives honing their style, whereas like a letterer or a writer can adjust their tone and their style to match whatever art style they're working with. So what we do on the art side is something called art facilitation, where we use our contacts and our connections in the industry to find artists, present artists to the client, and then manage the entire project. So basically, if anyone, say a writer, comes to us and says, hey, I want to make a comic book, cool. By working with us, you will get an entire comic book edited and all the way through to completion. And we can also manage the project so that all that you have to do is the one thing that you want to do, which is write. At the same time, if there's someone who's like, I want to make a comic and I have no idea how to write, we can do that too. And And we help people along every step of the process, going back to what we were talking about before about wanting to help out with the community. We also recently, within the past couple months, launched the Metal Ninja Dojo, which you know something about, where we offer free educational content to everyone. One thing that we kind of talked about before is learning how to do this is extremely difficult. There's no easy way to get information on something that for some people is just a hobby. For other people, it becomes a career, but people aren't necessarily willing to drop thousands upon thousands of dollars to learn something that may just be a hobby. As a way of easing people into the educational aspect of it, we started the Metal Ninja Dojo to provide that content. But then we also offer Metal Ninja Studios publishing to people who take on our full concept to comics essentials bundle, which is basically taking the project all the way through to completion. And that leads into the publishing, which is Kickstarter publishing on the Metal Ninja Studios platform.
Nice. So I'm going to give you a little kickback here. We're going to debate for a minute.
I'm down for that.
It's interesting that you don't do art, because if you look at Marvel and DC, they have a studio style.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, not all their books do that. Why did you look at that model and say that model doesn't fit?
Because we really have two different sides of the company, one of which we'll touch on a bit later when we talk about publishing, or publishers, I should say.
Right.
Actually, let me rephrase that. We have three different sides. We've got the publishing side, which I just kind of touched on. We have the work that we do for publishers, as well as the work that we do for independent creators. Marvel and DC, they own all of the IP that they're working with. With them being the IP holders, they are in complete creative control, and everything has to fit their mold. And when everything has to fit your mold, that means the artists have to fit your mold too. So you tell the artist, okay, you're going to draw in this style and do this. And that works for them. However, since we're working with independent creators, new creators who don't really know what's going on, or they do, and they're just looking to streamline the process and make it easier, they still have creative control, and they can still have their own vision as to what they want their story to be. And if Metal Ninja Studios has a roster of 3 artists and each one has their own style, then that really limits what we can offer to people, because those 3 artists then are the only style that we can offer. Because I'm not going to bring artists on and then go hire out because their art style doesn't work. So in order to provide the best quality story and really the best quality art for the clients, we decided that it would be best to essentially outsource and manage the artists as opposed to bring them in. That way we have a wider art base that we can pull from, and thus find the perfect artist for every story.
All right. That actually makes a lot of sense. Especially knowing who your big publisher is that we're going to talk about in a second. Like, they have a specific art style for their production company, at least in the main brand. I don't know about their sub brands, but that's interesting. I think, and again, I applaud you for doing this, because it's such a huge undertaking. As someone who just primarily a writer, I do anthologies, which is the only time I really hire outside of my little circle, and then my wife. My wife can do whatever she wants. I'll pay for it. She's my wife. No big deal. Like, whatever you need. So it's interesting, because writing for other people is really hard. I can only speak as the writer side. Writing for somebody is really, really hard, because a lot of times people come with a idea of this one part,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of it needs to be filled out by a writer who basically has to eat that paycheck. Like, they have to fold all the rest of the stuff and then keep that idea whole by building everything around it to make it.
Yep.
It's like Star Wars being Luke and Vader. Like, that's the only part of Star Wars that let's pretend that's what George Lucas presented. Not the rest of the universe. Not Hoth. Not Leia. Not R2D2. Not Chewbacca. Not Han Solo. Like, Luke and Leia. Like, there's all these extra elements that when you first start out, you just don't think about it. You have your one little story, and you
Yep.
don't have the rest. So that's interesting, and I also like that you're very full service. People can come to you, get advice, and you do a free consultation to anybody who wants to. And I think it's pretty long, right? It's like 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
45 minutes, yeah. And one thing that I didn't want people to think is that the only way to do a consultation is to become a client,
Right.
because basically anyone that's interested in becoming a client, we have them go through the consultation just so we can figure out the best ways that we can serve them. Again, going back to service over sales, not trying to
Right.
sell, we offer so many things and such a wide spectrum in the creative process that it would be super easy for me to say, oh, you're coming to me for lettering? Okay, well, you should fire your editor and hire us for that too. You don't necessarily need that. So, whatever your story is, the only way I can figure out what you really need is by talking to you.
Right.
So, that's where the consultation started. But anyone who goes to try and book a consultation right now is actually going to come to a page that says that Metal Ninja Studios is closed.
Well,
We're not bringing on any new clients right now. And we won't be for the rest of this year. It's going to open up again next year. But during that time, even while we're closed, I'm still offering those consultations and I'm still doing that just to provide information. If anyone wants to sit down and have a conversation like this and ask about how to make a comic, how to do a certain step of the process, or learn more about Metal Ninja Studios, they can still book the consultation. And basically, it's 45 minutes of me being an open book answering any question they have.
no, that's a really awesome service, and from someone who's qualified. You see that little Ringo nominee in the back. That is for production,
Yep.
meaning the whole thing. That's what the production stuff. I think that's a big statement of what you can do, how you can do, and Steak is a great example of a book that needed a style, needed a unique feel because it's a vampire book. You needed something to make it stand out on the shelf, and that's why it sold so well. Is because of that production. And I think that not a lot of people think about those things. We talk about a lot of people talk about the trends on Kickstarter of LGBT and like yes, all that's true, but you'll notice that the ones that are doing well have a certain style because people have figured out that algorithm of what to do. And that's stuff that they can come to you to get. And if not, how to make the best presentation for what you're doing to get to the next level.
Yeah. A lot of people in this industry, I've learned over the years, don't know that there's a stage after lettering. Like everyone says, I'm looking for a letterer. Cool. Who's going to put your book together? What do you mean?
Right.
And some people, like, especially if they're really new, they just say, oh, I thought you just send the pages to the printer. Okay. I mean, you can. Printers don't like that, but some of them will do it. But that's where the education part comes in too, is helping people understand that there is this stage that no one talks about.
I not only will I say that nobody talks about it, like you can't even find it. I actually recently, I have been working my letterer to death. Jerome, he's working through stuff, and I have this project that we're putting together. And I was like, I think I need someone to put it together for me. Like it's all the elements are there. Jerome has done it, and this is done it. But who do I hire just to put it together? That production thing, like, and it's not a service that there's not a Facebook group. There's a Facebook group for everything, for letterers, for colorists, for artists, for writers. There is not a Facebook group to, hey, we're going to help put your stuff together. And if you back a lot of Kickstarters, like I do, almost at 1,000, you'll find you can do it wrong. You
Yeah.
can do it. So that's interesting. So that brings you up to your most recent announcement, and that was you will be handling everything for this company.
Not
Okay.
only them, but every associated publisher that is within their umbrella. So, yep, we have taken over project management responsibilities for Merc Publishing, Black Ops Publishing, and Legends Publishing, as well as some additional design work and print production work for Comics Elite with their retailer exclusive program. So, yeah, that brings us to the other offering that I started with my experience at Scout and really honed over the years. working with a variety of different publishers in one way or another, is that we really streamlined what I call the end of process. Um, the end of process production. And what I mean by that is taking the comic from the lettering stage all the way through print prep. I've been doing that for years myself, and the team has been doing it for at least a year up until this point, just through the system that we developed. And what we can do for publishers is basically make it to where they can outsource their entire lettering and production service instead of having and managing a team of letterers and then finding people to do production design. As I learned with my time in Scout, the publishers don't really know what goes into production design. Even while I was there, they didn't really know what I did. They sent me a book and it came back a book. They sent me pages and it came back a book. Um, so I felt that there was a real opportunity there to provide a service that, especially up and coming publishers like Merck, they didn't necessarily know that they needed, but then once I can provide it, it frees them up to focus on what they really want to focus on, which is running and growing their business. No publisher should have to worry about if their book is going to make it to print on time or how it does it. And that's what we provided. It started with lettering for Merck. And then as Merck grew, like I said before, their needs for me grew, and I started doing all of their production work and all of their design work. And then it got to the point where their needs for me were so great that it put me in the same exact position that I was in with Scout. All of my freelance clients were getting pushed to the side, and this publisher needed more work. And I thought to myself, I said, okay, this is the second time in just a couple years that I've run into this exact same situation to where I have to choose between helping a publisher that I've been helping to build for years or the freelance clients. And it didn't seem right to choose. So that's what led me to expand Metal Ninja Studios to bring on the team and train other people to do what I've been doing and really scale so that we can not only help creators, but we can help publishers and hopefully streamline the process, increase a level of quality, and streamline the process, make everything easier for everyone, and break away from page rates so that we can increase the quality of books overall that we produce. That's a huge thing that I've been trying to do just on the studio side of things, because we can get into it if you want, but page rates, I think, are the bane of this industry.
Well, I mean, I think they're a necessary evil. They're tough, to try to figure it out, and try to figure out the value. You're asking someone, what's our time worth, and it's really hard to make those decisions outside of things, right? I just looked at, just even talking about our blog, uh, how long a blog is, that definition to everyone is different.
Hmm.
How big a script is different to everyone.
Yep.
There's industry standards, yes, between 20 and 24 pages, yes, but look at Charlie Stickney, who's made a very successful career of making sure his books are as many pages as it needs to be when it comes to Kickstarter, and then figuring that shit out later.
Yep.
There's no right or wrong way to do this in this industry. Is about people who break those rules. Everyone who's broke those rules and made it work, make it work. Like Walking Dead. I tell the story a lot. I was working at a comic store. I was like, should I buy this Image book that is a black and white zombie book? I said, hell no. No one wants a black and white zombie book. There is no way this will make it. I was very wrong.
Mm.
I also did predict, however, that Guardians of the Galaxy would outsell Invaders. So, I mean, I guess I did one out of two. But I feel like they had a little cheat code on that. I feel like Invaders has successfully failed its whole career. So,
Yeah, pretty much.
But I think we have talked about your whole career. We're caught up to where you're at now. You know, you've got your final Kickstarter live, which is really cool. This is a show where we really go over the Kickstarter, but it is live. It's got 4 more days. So if you're watching this in the next couple of days, we tend to get our views after the fact. I'll watch it tomorrow. So make sure you back it. And just announced today, I'm going to be doing a prose piece, which I don't do prose very often. I only do prose for friends. Like that's the only way you'll get me to do prose.
Yes.
Because I don't particularly care for prose. I wouldn't say I'm bad at it. I just don't particularly care to do it. um, so I'm doing prose. So
That's how I officially know that I'm in the friend zone, because he's doing
Right.
pros.
It's true. David Gressel has got me to do it, and my friend Alberto has got me to do prose. But I avoid prose as often as possible.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'm really excited for everyone to read it, because I know what it is, and it fits perfectly into Dust County and answers one question that I didn't answer, and that's always the best story.
But so to wrap this up, we have 4 questions for you.
Okay.
These are going to be really hard. These 4 questions will be asked. We ask these of every one of our guests. So I'm going to wet the whistle a little bit. Now I'm going to start asking these questions. Normally I only ask half of these, but Todd decided to do 6.
Do you feel more active drinking that beer?
That's a great question. Yes, I think again because it's 4%. It's not. It's just kind of like a soda, more or less. Because you know that I like stout, so I
Yeah.
like my beer to be a like meal.
Yeah.
This is not a meal. This is a carrot stick.
Oh man, I don't think they're gonna be happy that their beer has been reduced to vegetable.
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get the Be More Active sponsorship. I was hoping for it, but I don't think they're going to sponsor this for our 2024 season.
Oh man, gotta find another one.
Yeah. All right. So, Joel, what do you think makes Metal Ninja Studios stand out in the current comic market?
To my knowledge, there's no studio that offers what we offer. The amount of value that we offer to our clients, even just outside of, hey, you need us to letter a book. We have a marketing manager that manages not only our social media, but helps promote all of our clients as well. We sponsor a podcast that our people or our clients get easy access to, and we also help them book spots on other shows. And one of my founding values, or founding principles I should say, is to try and provide so much value that the price seems not necessarily negligible, but less than it should be. I want to provide more value than you think you should be getting for the price. And a big part of that is because we're breaking page rates, we're breaking out of the industry standard. And the only way that we can do that is by proving that what you get is worth it, because we are a premium service provider. Pretty much everything that we can do, you can find from other people elsewhere for less. But you will not be able to find everything that we do with the level of experience that we have and the quality that we provide in one spot anywhere else. And that's what we provide.
Yeah, and I'll back that up. And this isn't me tooting my own horn. Even just in blogs, people who do blogs for Newsarama or some of these bigger sites, they're not at the caliber of Jonathan and myself. Like they haven't done that kind of work in the comic industry. Jonathan's Recount is one of the highest selling books at Scott.
Yep.
It just is. It's in the top 10. Granted, State Punk is a well known, but I also got the Ringer nomination for Cthulhu Invades. I've raised a lot of money on Kickstarter. All these things. I think you've got those caliber of stuff, and I think you've done the work and pick the right people. Even with Blake on social media, picking the right people who fit your vibe and can do what you need to do. Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah,
All right.
it was very important for me to build a team that feels like a team and feels like we're building something together, because that's the only way that we're going to succeed and that we're going to grow, is if everyone can see the vision, see what we try and do. And a big part of that comes down to me being able to explain what the vision is. But I'm extremely proud of everyone that we have on board, yourself included. And I couldn't have picked a better team.
Nice. And your team's growing all the time,
Yep.
which is amazing. So, all right. The next question is, what keeps you going? This is a great one for you because you've been in the scenario. You've kind of just talked about it. It's happened to you twice. What keeps you going when this career becomes too difficult?
I think it's my ability to pivot, and the fact that I intentionally put myself through difficult times and difficult stuff, uh, as a way to kind of mentally prepare myself. We didn't really touch on this, but during COVID, I was in a very bad mental state,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where I was considering just quitting the Dust County Chronicles. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to go back to Kickstarter. Just I kind of wanted out to some degree, um,
Sure.
but at the same time, I was also in the worst shape of my life. I was complacent and just like the whole world. It was not a good time. Uh, but I started doing a program called 75 Hard that helps develop mental toughness. And it's a lot of people look at it and think that it's a fitness program because you have to do 2 45-minute workouts a day for 75 days straight. But a lot of it comes down to putting yourself in situations to where you're doing uncomfortable stuff and dealing with the results, and basically to prove to yourself that no matter how hard things get, you will always make it through as long as you put in the work. And I've lost 55 pounds in the past 14 months. And during that same time, Metal Ninja Studios has expanded from me lettering books to where it is today. I've got much a much higher clarity of mind and just feel better overall in general. So a lot of that I credit to focusing on my health, focusing on my mental state, and then really it's being able to pivot and understand that even when times get hard, it will always get better if I do the work and if I push through and keep going. Because one thing that I realized even back, I mentioned that 10 years to full time writer sticky note. What that note represented was the fact that comics is essentially a war of attrition. The longer you can stay in, eventually the people who started around the same time as you will drop out to where you're the only one left. And
Right.
that's how people become an overnight success in this industry. Really just they stayed the longest because they'll start writing and they'll start with the group of people. And then 10 years later, they're the only ones left and they finally make it big and they become the overnight success. People don't see the 10 years of work that it came to get there, but they finally made it. And I think over the past year and a half, I've really started to learn how to make that happen. I have no idea if I answered your question because I started rambling a bit there, but hopefully I did.
Good enough. Good enough for government work. Yeah, I have a similar philosophy. I call it the graduating class, right? There, you are. everybody is in comics. Everybody, we're all in the same high school, but we're at different levels of the same high school, right? Like some of us are in the senior class, some of us are in junior class, some of us sophomore class, and then our class is leveling up, and we're going to those other levels, and we're still there. There's less people. Sometimes new people come into our class because we're taking AP this year instead of honor or whatever it needs to be. So there's different people who jump in, and then some people are they're still there, but you've kind of outgrown them and go to the next stuff. And I think it becomes offensive because it sounds offensive, like outgrowing, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's that you can't where you're going, they can't come because they're not trying to do what you do.
Yeah.
And myself included, I remember many a times when sitting with you and David being like, I want to work for Marvel and DC. They're like, you guys are like, I'm really good, like doing my indie stuff. And I was like, no, like that's what I want. Yeah, but you're making a great book. Broke Down's a good book. Yeah, but that's not what I want. Explaining that to people who don't have that same feeling or vibe or what they're trying to do, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. It's basically when I get asked that same question, because it says, working in comics, oh, do you want to work in Marvel and DC? For you, the answer is yes. For me, the answer is no, I don't. And it's because I feel like I can do much more good with the path that Metal Ninja Studios is currently on.
Sure. And you're not wrong. You listen to any interview of any Marvel or DC guy, the first thing that they're going to tell you is, I wish I did more creator-owned stuff early on.
So my main point with that is that neither of us are wrong. We both have our own goals, we have our own dreams, and all we have to do is keep working until we get there.
Sure, absolutely. All right, next one. And this is going to be really hard because you've just the Merc publishing deal is such a big level up for you. It's a big level up for your company. It's one of the reasons why I wanted you on this show. It's not just because you're doing that. It's such a big level up because I'm always looking for these things that are the next level. Like you got a Marvel and DC deal, or you got a Scout deal, or you got whatever deal that happens to be. Watching it level up, the Merc publishing deal is such a big deal for your company. What does the next level up look like for you?
I'm getting 2 more publishers within the next year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Of the same size?
Not necessarily of the same size. If anything, I'm looking for. I would not turn down publishers of the same size. Of course, I think that we have the bandwidth and the infrastructure for it. But what I've learned working with Scout and with Merc is that the up and coming publishers, the publishers who really who start small and have big visions, those are the ones that I feel like my team is most beneficial for. Because to be honest, my team would be able to do wonders for a company like Mad Cave or SourcePoint or these publishers who have a repetitive process and need someone to get it across the end. Like I said, we make it to where they don't have to worry about managing the print deadlines or anything like that. They just need to focus on growing their companies. But the problem with a publisher at that size is they've already gotten to that size. So they already have the staff. They already have the people doing the thing. So they don't necessarily see the value in what we're providing. So would I love to get a publisher of that size? Yes. I think that a much more enduring approach is going to be focusing on the up and coming publishers and helping them see their true potential instead of trying to hop on to someone that already exists without first proving ourselves. And Merc is going to be a big thing in terms of proving ourselves, because with them, we're not running one publishing company. We're running 3. But yeah, that's actually not a very hard question because I'm already planning like the next 10 years. So
Well, that being said, our final question is then what is your next level up? So you shut down your business, Merc's running. What's the next level up right after that? Or is that the getting 2 more, or do you have a smaller goal in between there?
So I think that the next immediate level up is going to be developing more of our infrastructure and spending the next couple of months just ironing out some of the business stuff. Uh, and then when we open again, really showcasing the work that we've been putting in over these months of giving people a premium onboarding experience. Because that's one thing that I noticed over my years is that people in this industry are always go, 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 and build the ship as you go type of thing. Scout did it, Merck did it, pretty much every publisher I know has done it. Um, and that's why this pause in onboarding was really important to me, because we're taking a step back, not bringing on anyone new, and using that time to develop our onboarding procedure so that when people come in, they will feel like our number one priority. And that's really important to me, because then they're going to see, okay, right now this company's focusing on Merck Publishing. Like, they're dealing with 50 to 70,000 plus campaigns every month. They're not going to have time for me making my first book. And then they come on board and they feel like they're the only client that we have. And that is really important to me. And that's what I'm making sure that we're building right now.
Nice. So kind of like the web design approach, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Web design, your website is what all the only website we're working on is you.
Yep.
It's a lie, but that's what we tell
Exactly.
them.
Exactly. Wait, you were working on someone else's website? What the hell?
What? How dare you? That whole portfolio that you sent me in the beginning of these other clients.
Right.
I'm too. um, but that is it, Joel. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. This was way easier than expected. I got to tell you. It was so hard to talk to David. I don't know, maybe because I talk to David on the regular. You and I have months where we talk a lot, and then like several months we don't.
Yeah.
Right. So our and our relationship is fine. By the way, Joel and I are good. We don't need that extra time. That's how we roll. Because David was really hard. I was like, I know this shit, and I'm bored. Like, and my brain was like, and he's a fascinating guy. He's got all sorts of things. He canceled, and hospice is killing it right now. One of my best friends. So it's really interesting. I appreciate you being here, and so proud of you and all the work that you've been doing and the stuff that you got coming up. And thank you for having me on board in a little bit that I get to do. It's been a blessing, and I would have had you on the show even if you didn't do that, because I'm so impressed with your stuff. And I love people like you that do the things that I don't want to do. And I don't say that as an offensive. Like, you've known me since day one.
Yep.
I don't want to be a publisher. I want to be a writer. Am I good at being a publisher? Yes, but that's not the point. Like, that's not what I want. But talking about what you did, going back to right in the beginning, you had a little piece of paper. You wrote it there. I want to be a writer within 10 years.
Yep.
You're willing to pivot and change and do what it needs to be so you can find your love of comedy. I remember having this conversation with you when you switched to not really being a writer and saying, I'm going to finish medical neurosurgery, but I really want to be a letterer. And me being like, but like what? And I was bringing up other products that I like, because it doesn't click in my mind.
Yeah.
Like someone who wants to be a writer, it just doesn't, it's not like all I want to do is create stories. And when someone who started out, I felt we were on the same wavelength. It's like, no, I'm cool with like doing other people's stories. Like, no, like, what are you doing? We're making our own stories. We're all, no, all right.
Well,
I don't know what to do.
Well, I noticed at that point was when we started talking less and less often. But no. Did I ever tell you my definition of the word luck?
No.
My personal definition, I heard it from somewhere. I didn't come up with this. I can't remember where I heard it from, but I define luck as being prepared and able to say yes whenever an opportunity arises. And that's basically how my entire career has developed. If something came up, I said yes and figured out how to do it later. And then when that opportunity led to a pivot, it's just a decision of, okay, is this pivot something that I'm interested in trying out? Sure, I'll try it. And then that led to one thing and led to another and led to another. And I very quickly saw that my personal career was not going to go the way that I wanted it to in writing. Like I'm very confident in my writing. I'm very happy in my writing, but the best way for me to pursue my writing was to put my focus into lettering, because then I can actually build out my career. And like now I have an entire team helping me with the Dust County Chronicles. Like that campaign design I did not do, and it turned out, in my opinion, way better than if I did it, because I built a team of people who quite frankly are better than me. And I really enjoy that, and those decisions that I made are what made all of that possible. So yes, I still want to write, I still want to make my own books. It's just now I have to find the time for it.
No. I absolutely, and there's no shame in that. I remember listening to a Donny Cates interview, and because he was an intern at Marvel, and they asked him to stay on as an editor, and someone took him in his office and be like, "You want to write though." So it's the opposite of your story, which I
Yep.
which I think is fascinating. And again, how I've listened to it, because the world universe puts you in the right place that you need to do, and the way it went, he was like, if you take this editing job, you will be an editor. That's it. Like you're never going to be able to do the other thing, because once you get into a thing, and I wonder if that's where you went. When you started, all right, I'm going to start doing lettering because I have this extra thing, and then well, now you're a letterer, and then you're like, and then one day you were like, that's okay. Like I'm okay with being a letterer, and like, again, that's where we split. I was like, what happened?
See, for me,
Mhm.
it was never so much that I want to be a writer. It was writing was the only thing that I felt confident enough to do.
Sure.
Because I can't draw at all. And I didn't really know that lettering was a thing other than like the word balloons and Spawn looked awesome. Um, and it wasn't until I started doing the Dust County Chronicles and realized, oh, I need to find a letterer or I can figure out how to do it myself. I tell people not to do that now, but that's exactly what I did. That's how I got my start. And I found that I was fairly good at it. And that, like you said in the very beginning, people started asking me to letter their own stuff. So in my head, I was getting into comics as a writer because that's the only thing I was good at. But all of the
Sure.
evidence was telling me that I'm good at this thing. So I followed the evidence. And now it's taken me 5 years to put out the Dust County Chronicles and finally get the last issue out. And now people are telling me that I'm good at writing. And I'm like, well, shit.
I don't think I think David and I have both told you that you're good at writing in the past. It's just
Yeah.
trying to figure out the time to do that, and um, you had big ideas. Most people think with something like my book, this is a crime book. It's not. It is complicated because I made it complicated, but crime itself, writing crime, is not very complicated. Right?
There's a rule, break it.
Right. So you're cool. So, but that is it. I loved you on the show. You have leveled up with me today. Hopefully, you guys have listened, learned something from Joel, and again, anyone can talk to Joel just like this for 45 minutes.
Yep.
Do that. Anything else you want to say before we take off?
Just thanks for having me. I've been hoping to level up since you had this show and I had to hire you and then eventually I leveled up. So I'm
Well, I just it's honestly it's the rule of finishing. You had to finish something, and I
yep.
believe I know I asked you when Dusk kind of how close it was to being finished, and you told me where it was, and I was like, I feel confident. I know that you'll get out the book. I know all that stuff. I trust
See
it. It's not your favorite part,
see,
but
this is where I need to push back a little bit. I let me say I do love being on the show. I'm happy that you invited me and the rule of finishing though, I have finished so much stuff,
sure.
but it's my one book. Like the Dust County Chronicles, yes, I wanted to finish that, but as a letterer, I have finished so much stuff over the
I,
past 5 years.
and you're absolutely right and fair. And you were here before Jerome, so I mean that's crazy. I put you on before
I,
Jerome, so Jerome hasn't been on the show yet.
wow. All right.
So,
I retract everything that I've said.
right. And I don't know if you know, he announced that he's lettering Assassin's Creed, which I think is one of your favorite video games.
It is. I am extremely jealous.
Yeah, this is a thing that Joel and I like to when I'm friends with someone, I know something personal about them. I try to do things. So one time we were out, Joel and I were out again. Stories of Joel. I was like, oh, by the way, this guy inked. Did he ink or drew some pages of Spawn? He inked.
He inked. Yeah.
Yeah, he. Oh, this guy inked Spawn, and you're like, what? Oh yeah. I brought him. Oh, you want to meet him? Oh, I already invited him to dinner. Is that fine? Like Joel's like, what? And then the other day, I just told you. Oh, by the way, I know the writer of this certain arc of Spawn. You're like, you do what? And that guy will be on the show very very soon. But that's what I like to do.
Let me know because I mean, obviously, you know, Spawn. Like,
well, I mean, if Todd can't be here, if he's sick, I mean, you can co-host.
I will definitely co-host. I will figure out all the buttons.
All the buttons. If not, we'll have Blake in the background just hitting the buttons. Blake, you can't be on the air. You have your own show, but you can hit the buttons for us.
Boom. I like it. I
All
got
right.
a guy.
You have leveled up, good sir. Thank you for being on the season 1 of Comic Book Level Up. Let's play our outro. Peace, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, where's the buttons? See, I don't know where the buttons are. All right, here.